Tonight, former Five Live commentator and broadcasting legend, Alan Green, who's also a Read All Over the Land columnist. Good evening, Alan. How are you?
I'm grand, apart from the aftermath of the Arsenal game.
We will get to that. Don't worry. Don't worry. There'll be a lot to say about that. As well as Alan, someone who you'll know from his 14 years on the Echo and now with The Athletic, James Pearce. He'll be joining us a little bit later on. And let's just get straight to the star of the show. You know him, the creator, the editor for 28 years of the longest lasting and only surviving Liverpool fanzine, Read All Over the Land. Good evening, John Pearman.
Good evening, and thank you for the build-up.
No worries, John. Well, we'll start with you, John, actually, because it's a pretty significant issue of the fanzine coming up soon, isn't there?
Yes, hopefully out for the game against Luton, which has now been moved to a Wednesday night before the scheduled date, due to us being in another cup final. And it is.
So it's one of the times when we don't mind the fixtures being messed up. This time, isn't it?
They can mess all the fixtures up for cup finals as long as they like. Yeah, providing it's down to us being in the cup final and not somebody else.
Yes.
But yeah, we've got issue 300 coming out. It was the chances were that it was going to be out for the game against Burnley, but unfortunately the rain against Chelsea stopped us selling. Really, it was very, very wet for too long, and it was one of the few occasions where we didn't have people out there selling. I think Martin went out there for the last hour because it basically stopped pouring down and just drizzled, and he could find a little bit of shelter. So they're the trials and tribulations of a fanzine seller.
Yeah, but the current issue is out now, and this is the current issue. And you can get that at readallovertheland.com. But issue 300 is on the way, isn't it?
It certainly is. As I say, it'll be out for the game against Luton. It's all put together. I'm just tidying it up, and it'll be off to the printer very soon. And hopefully it will be welcomed. It's nothing too over the top as way as a celebration. Jurgen put a stop to that, but I think we might talk about that later. But we've got a couple of guest writers, Stephen F. Kelly, who we had on the show a couple of weeks back. He's written numerous books, and also Jim Boardman, who I believe worked for the Daily Mirror for a long time. He's a Liverpool fan. He's always been interested in the fanzine. I think he actually did pen an article way back. I can't remember when it was. Anyway, he's come out and done something about what a fanzine means to the fans, and why they're still around. Although we're no longer the number that were there when we first started with issue 1.
Yeah, from issue 1 to issue 299, what have been some of your highlights, personal highlights that's gone into?
Well, my personal highlight would be 1999 when we organised in conjunction with the club. Shankly Day, and we produced a fanzine that was basically supposed to be written in the times of Shankly, like when he came, how the fans were moaning about the form before Shanks arrived, and it was all a little bit doctored, obviously, because it was all made up. But it was in two halves. The front half was the past, and the second half was the present. But we had two covers, so you had the front cover, which was Shankly, and then you had to turn it over, and the second half of the fanzine would have been upside down. Right. So it was done like that. Yeah, it was pretty good. We're very proud of it. And that was actually issue 40, because it came out to the 40th anniversary of Shankly taking over at Liverpool.
Nice.
The club did the 50th year, and it was feeble. It was awful. But it was on a wet Wednesday night against Wigan. They couldn't even pick the right date. The 60 years passed, I think, without mention. And I thought today, shall I do a 75th one? But I thought then again, no, it's a few more years to go, John. Leave it at that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But what we're planning to do is build things up from now to the end of the season, and look at ways of celebrating what as we mentioned, I think at the last show, the leap years. 1964 was that never to be forgotten panorama program when there were some very young Liverpool fans standing on the cop singing their heads off, and
Singing
they're
She
all
Loves
now,
You. Yeah.
yeah, and they're now all of my age. So we're trying to see if we can find a few of them
Because one of them
who
was
won.
Stan Boardman, wasn't it? Stan Boardman is
One
one of the
scrambled,
faces in
yeah,
that car.
and actually George Sefton was on the cop that day, but not on the film. Not
Right.
well, he didn't spot himself, and I had a look.
Yeah.
But yeah, we want to do that because that was Shankly's first major title as a manager. Yeah, he won the
Yes.
second division with Liverpool, but it was the first major title as a manager. And then, of course, he went on in '74 and his last trophies, which were the FA Cup, and if you want, you can count the Charity Shield, the infamous Leeds game,
Yes.
Leeds Bremner Keegan,
Yeah.
and
Bremner showed his
he did
bum. Yeah.
actually lead the side out that day. So he actually did quite well on it for his last occasion.
Yes.
And then, of course, you move on 10 years, and it's what I call the forgotten treble when the great Joe Fagan took Liverpool to the league title, the third successive league title. He also had us in the European Cup final in Rome, winning on penalties, and of course the League Cup.
Yes.
So that was the first, in my eyes anyway, the first real treble ever completed, and Liverpool have done one since. So that's it. We did the other one, but the 2001 gets more publicity than Joe Fagan's, which is odd because that
Yeah. Yeah.
included the two major trophies that were available then.
So you've got 64, 74, 84, and 94 would be?
The Cop's Last Stand, the
Yes.
the great day, saddest day, greatest day, but most colourful day ever, and the sun shone. But we
Yes.
got beat 1-0 by Norwich, which basically that's how that team performed. Every time they built you up, every time you got something going, they went and let you down. And that was one of those days. But it was a fantastic day, and it was organised. 95% of it was organised by my good friend John Mackin. And John is still around today, still watching games, still doing things, and we're hoping to celebrate it. We'll never replicate that happening on that day, but we're going to try and do something. And we've asked the club to be involved in some way. Actually, when I say be involved, all we want for them is permission. And then the fan group called 1906 Spine Cop 1906, they could then get people to bring more flags in, and I said let's have 1,000 flags on the cop.
Yeah. But brought
Uh,
from the fans. None of this,
from the
the
fans,
plastic.
no Chelsea type plastic fan, no, or the ones that Everton have put out
Putting
or
scarves on the
Fulham.
seats and all that
No, we
corporate
don't want
nonsense.
anything
No,
like
no.
that.
Yeah.
And Peter McDowell can't be involved. That'll be in the contract
Yeah.
because we don't want him trying to tell people what to do because he gets it wrong anyway. His timing's not perfect.
Okay. All right. Well, we can get more details of that as that gets a little bit closer. And there'll be a bit on that in issue 300, will there, John?
There
In
will be
the
only a mention, but the idea
Okay.
is to build it up and then
So what's the date for that then? It's May, is it?
we can't put a date on it because we don't know what day the game against Spurs will be played. But if the game's played on the Sunday, that's when it will take place, obviously. So whenever day we play Spurs, the flag day will happen then. Prior to that, on the eve of the Spurs game, we want to do something at the Hotel Anfield where we will hopefully get former Liverpool players not to come on and talk about their careers. They've done that to death now, and they do it to death every week, obviously, and they've done it for us. But to try and get people who have actually stood on the cop and watched the team. Just thinking off the top of my head, you've got Phil Thompson, Jimmy Case, Sammy Lee, who would have stood near the front. You've got people like Hal Gale,
John
and
Aldridge.
John Aldridge, yeah, obviously, and there's probably a couple more. But what we want is to get these people to come on and tell us about what it was like watching a game on the Cop when
Yeah.
they were young, not scoring goals in front of the Cop. That's all been done.
Great.
So that's the idea, and we'll have we'll hope to have a good night on that. And I'll personally invite Alan now, and of course, Graham, you'll be the host.
Okay, thanks a lot. I'm already booked. Great. Okay, that's great. Well, that works for
Can
me.
I
That's
just, can I
fantastic.
just say something, Graham?
Yes.
To John there, and it's fantastic what he's been doing over the years. Absolutely fantastic. And when I was working, you go to a game and you get a free program. Yeah? I never read programs, not even Liverpool's program, because frankly, club programs bit too much like propaganda for me. There's not enough criticism within the body of the program, whichever club it is. So I would tend to go. I remember going to Chelsea. Anytime I went to Chelsea to commentate, I'd buy a fanzine locally because I thought that way I'll keep in touch with what the regular Chelsea fans are thinking, as opposed to what I'm reading in their program notes. And it's true of Read All Over the Land more than any other fanzine ever. The fans, the people who are privileged enough, and I'm lucky to be one of them, to be asked to write for Read All Over the Land, they're giving opinions, honest opinions, which may well be critical of the manager, of players, of the club. But when you read it, it's the true feelings of the writer, of the author. And I think that's vital to be maintained. We must never lose that.
Yeah. And thanks, John, for facilitating that for so many fans, because it is by the fans and it's for the fans. And you're right, Alan. I agree with you. It's a wonderful thing. When the first one I bought in 1998, when I bought my first Read All Over the Land fanzine we were playing Crystal Palace and away, and bought it there off John. Didn't know him then, and then I was like, yeah, this is it. This is what it should be all about. This is how you connect to this football club, not through the program. Yeah.
What the fanzine's done for me, it's introduced me to people like yourself, like Alan, and I like to think that we've all become friends, not close friends or anything like that, but friends football friends. There's others, like, as I mentioned earlier, John Mack, and there's the lads who still sell the fanzine, Andy, Steve, Martin, and we're hopefully having another lad called Alan who may be tuning in tonight. So we've met people, and people will come up to me on a match day, stand and talk to me, and then say, "Thanks, John, cheers." And I'd think to myself, "Thank you very much. I don't know who you are, because you don't know the names. You just they come up to you and they talk to you. They know who I am and they know who Steve is, but we don't, or Andy, Martin, but we don't know who they are. And that's the beauty of it. You become your friends for 5 minutes on a match day, and that's it. And people have said some great things to me over the last few years. About the fanzine, wanting it to carry on, because they know fanzines are now there's nowhere near what was around when I started. When I started, there was probably 200 covering the entire football league. I doubt now whether there's 20, which is a shame. But people have also said about this idea, this Read All Over YouTube, they like it because we're the fans and we're not out there to make anything special about it. We're doing something. We're talking about it, talking about football. We're not here to criticise. We'll say what we think, but we're not here to put anybody down. Or anything, unless it's a referee, of course. But in truth, it's all the whole thing about a fanzine from day one was by the fans and it was for the fans. A lot of the people that started them have gone away, left the scene or whatever. But I can't remember the game. Oh no, it's Nottingham Forest, and we were playing them, and the lad came up and bought the fanzine, and he said, I used to be the editor of a Forest fanzine. And he sent me a message when he got home, said, that was fantastic. Thank you very much. I wish we were still doing ours. Only he'd now got a family. So that had put him out. And somebody sent me an email only yesterday. He just subscribed, and he said it took him back to when he was a kid of 14, travelling to a game on the bus, where people used to sit on the bus and read fanzines. So there you go. Yeah. So it's still got something there. It's like I've said in one of the previous fanzine. Fanzines are like vinyl. They thought vinyl were going. The vinyl made a comeback, and fanzines are making a comeback, and that's a good thing.
Well, best of luck with number 300, John.
What matter about you, John, is that you maintain your goodwill. You do not lose your temper when some idiot comes up and says, is that the club program you're selling? or worse, comes up to you wearing a half and half scarf.
Yeah. Well, we did think about getting gallows installed, but they won't let us.
But, let's meet our next guest, who's been standing by in our green room. This is how are you, James Pearce? How are things? Oh, hello. I can't hear you. Wait a second. Let me see if I can. It says. Let's see if I can. Guest has muted themselves. James, it says you've muted yourself. So I don't know what you've done at your end to mute yourself. I can lip read you saying, can you hear me? But are you there, James? Okay, can you hear us? You can hear us. Okay, we're halfway there. It does say on my little screen that guest has muted themselves. So there must be something you clicked within the eCam system that we're using to go live here that has muted. Because I would have thought if you'd muted it on your computer, it wouldn't show on my screen here that that's what's going on. But it actually says guest has muted themselves. So I'm not sure what you've done. There is there a little... a little graphic of a speaker anywhere on your little screen? And if there's an X to it, click that X and that. Because I've got a graphic of a little speaker and an X. And then in front of it, there's a little picture of a microphone and it says guest has muted themselves. So I'm not sure why that is, James. How about you disconnect and connect again and see if that works? Turn it off, turn it back on again. That great standby. We've got a lot of people watching tonight live. We're live on Twitter, it is X. It was Twitter. We're also on Facebook and we're on YouTube, obviously. We may even be on LinkedIn. I tried that. If anybody is actually watching us on LinkedIn, can you let me know if we are on there or not? I'm pretty sure I've done the wrong things. I got a message. But anyway, Becca Music is back on. You were on the last show, weren't you, Becca Music? So thanks for checking in. David Moen, he says, Julian Dix scoring the last LFC goal in front of the Cop, Grand National Day, 1994, John. There's another one for another leap year there.
I was actually there. There was only about 25,000. It snowed and the game kicked off at something like 10:30. But Becca Music actually sent me this. Gave me this outside the ground. Don't know if you can see it.
What's it say? Move it to your left, John. And now move it up. Slowly up. Stop. Becca Music. What's it say underneath? Move it up a bit more.
2024. Does it? Oh, it says Becca Music. You'll never walk alone. And right. You can tell this is live because we haven't rehearsed anything. No, it's not coming. Well, there you go.
Well, there it is. Oh, yeah. Oh, red all over the land. Is that what it says? Move it back towards you. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, well, Becca Music, thank you so much. Andrew Nixie has also checked in as well and given us 2 thumbs up. Thank you very much, Andrew. If you can tell us what platform you're watching on as well, that'd be great. These all look like they're watching on YouTube, the little YouTube logo there. But if you could tell us that, I'd just be interested to see how we're doing, because I know when we started going on X, we got it was like 4 or 5 times the amount of live viewers at the time. And of course you can watch it afterwards as well. Okay, well, as we're waiting for James to get back in, let's get to Alan now. Alan, what went wrong at Arsenal for us?
Everything. When I saw the team selection, I was shaken. The absence of Sobo. I can't pronounce his name in full.
Szoboszlai.
Sorry. Our wonderful Hungarian midfield.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So Conor Bradley, I knew what had happened. His father had died. There's no way he could have played. But I didn't understand being on the bench. I was very worried about the right side. Gakpo, Gravenberch, and Trent just coming back after being out injured. But I thought that looked weak. And unfortunately, it was one of those occasions in which my thinking was correct. And I thought we looked awful down the right-hand side until the inevitable substitutions were made in the second half. And I thought it contributed to Konate being a little bit uncertain as well, getting himself booked. The concession of the first goal, not clever. Then Trent makes a mess of his defensive work at right back, and we almost conceded a second goal. And I'm thinking, this is going to be horrible. Now I'm sitting watching Sky's coverage, couldn't bear to listen to Gary Neville and Peter Drury. End of story. Rather have the mute button on. But it didn't improve. It really didn't improve. Things just went wrong in ways that I wasn't expecting. And frankly, we deserved nothing out of the game. And we still contributed to what was only our second league defeat of the season. You can't mention the Tottenham game because that was so bizarre what happened at Spurs away. But this occasion, Van Dijk and Alisson making a mess between them for the second goal. Konate stupidly getting sent off for a needless second yellow card. And I'm thinking, who's going to be playing in defence? And Diaz was at right back at one stage.
Yeah.
Honestly, it was awful.
I was surprised he hadn't subbed Konate earlier, actually, because he was getting niggled the whole time.
But he tends
once
to
he'd been carded. Yeah.
Well, Konate can be very, very good, but he's a very physical player, and sometimes he's careless. And I think that sometimes Alisson plays the ball out when Liverpool are, quote, not defending anymore, but starting to rebuild from the back. And then it's a sloppy ball forward. And, no, I mean, we have players who are ready, I think. Kwanzaa's very good. Yes. Excellent. I think Gomez has been outstanding, playing in every single defensive position. Right side, left side, in the middle, whatever. And Bradley is, to me, a proper right back, which allows Trent to try to succeed as a midfield player. I mean, there are lots of questions posed after that game. And I must admit, I couldn't wait to switch it off. So I didn't see the Arsenal celebrations that seemed to have caused a little bit of controversy. I didn't see that.
Oh, I didn't see that. Yeah, I after the third goal, I went to bed. I'd had enough. Yeah. So, what happened?
It was wasn't it? It was hysterical. But it just shows you how vital it was for them to win the game. But I was disappointed at how little we did to stop them winning the game.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's bring James Pearce in now. James, can you hear and see us now?
I can hear you guys. Yeah, can you hear me?
Very. Yes, it's good, and we're looking forward to getting your expert critique on the Arsenal game after your 14 years on the Echo and now with the Athletic. What went wrong then for you, do you think?
Where do you start? It was, Klopp probably described it best, didn't he, when he said just a collective bad day at the office. I think you could run through a whole host of things. I thought they looked a bit jaded. I think that was, game 36 of the season, the 8th since the turn of the year. It just felt flat from the start. They allowed Arsenal to do to them what Liverpool have been so good at doing to other teams in terms of hassling them and forcing mistakes and winning possession back high up the pitch. There just wasn't that kind of energy there to do that. Loads of sloppy mistakes. Obviously, as just listening to you guys then talking, you can't legislate for something like that midway through the second half with Van Dijk letting the ball bounce and then the mix up with Alisson, which came at a really pivotal time in the game, because I actually thought, as poor as Liverpool were, they get their absolute gift of an equaliser just before half time. And they, the Arsenal fans around me early in the second half were actually just starting to get a bit frustrated as Liverpool belatedly got a foothold in the game, which made it even more infuriating, the fact that Liverpool shot themselves in the foot in such a manner. So, yeah, and I thought selection-wise, it just didn't work, did it? Picking Gakpo ahead of Nunes, especially with the way that Arsenal pressed and forced Liverpool to go long. You needed Nunes really to hold the ball up and just get Liverpool further up the pitch, and Gakpo wasn't able to do that. The ball kept on coming back, and pressure grew, and Trent, as Alan said before, that right side of the pitch just didn't function with Gravenberch. Of course, that selection was kind of enforced once Szoboszlai was ruled out through injury, but Gravenberch didn't have a very particularly productive afternoon, and Trent is clearly still building up his fitness after a month out. So yeah, there was Liverpool just didn't deserve anything, did they?
John?
Yeah. Anyway, James, it's nice to speak to you. I've followed your time on the Echo and the Athletic, and have watched you on Press Box.
Thanks very much.
I just feel that whenever we have to make changes in midfield, then something seems to go wrong. I still can't understand why Harvey Elliott doesn't get a start, because he's not the world's greatest or anything like that, and he's still learning the game. But I think he could. I think he's better than Gravenberch at this moment.
He plays with more passion than a lot of players.
Even
in our side.
That's his style. But Jurgen's obviously got his reasons. But even in the games where we've been winning games, Gakpo has come on and not really looked too good. The same with Gravenberch. There's something not quite there yet. They're not quite up to the speed that we require. And Gakpo's been here a year, so it's time he really did. He should be making an impact. But you losing our Hungarian maestro for what could be 5-6 games now. They're saying I don't understand how we keep getting all these injuries. Because against Chelsea, he was one of the stars of the show.
And I think when Endo returns, I honestly believe he has developed and now almost commands a starting place. I think when Endo returns, that'll allow McAllister to play further forward, who I have great faith in. So it's not, it's just one really awful game, and hopefully it will not dictate the season. But it just felt like a blow that we didn't need so soon after Jurgen's announcement. I hated it. I just hated it. Sunday night was a nightmare in my home for my wife, having to put up with me. It's awful.
Yeah. Well, just in terms of Gravenberch and Gakpo, I've got a bit of sympathy with both of them, because I think Gakpo's been moved around a hell of a lot. I don't think that can be easy as a player when he was obviously used to playing out wide at PSV, and then Klopp played him predominantly as almost it looked like he was going to be the kind of Firmino false nine replacement. There's been times this season where he's been pushed into midfield, even times out on the right. So I think that can't be easy as a player when you're still trying to carve out a niche for yourself. And then in terms of Gravenberch, yes, he hasn't set the world alight yet since coming from Bayern Munich. But I just think the sheer intensity and physicality has been a bit of a culture shock for him, because he barely played any football last season. He spent most of the year sat on the bench in Munich. And then I think the other big thing with him was he missed out on a pre-season, which we know with Klopp is so big in terms of adjusting to what he wants from you, because he's almost been learning on the job really since he arrived at the start of September. So, and he's still only 21. I think because Gravenberch, it feels like he's been around a long time, because he was one of those kind of, hailed as like a generational talent almost in Holland when he was coming through, and then had the big move to Bayern. But he's still a young kid really. So it was just a bad, as Alan said, it was a bad day all round. But you've got to try and keep a sense of perspective, and in the context of the season, when was the last time this group of players didn't turn up for a game? It's a long time ago.
Well, I said it was the first time we've been outplayed for possibly 12 months. And that's the way I look at it. And although they've got a game in hand, we're still top of the league. And if you'd have told me in August that at the beginning of February, Liverpool would be neck and neck with Manchester City, then I
And
would
in a
have said,
cup final. Yeah.
and in a cup final. Oh, I'd take a cup final anyway. They're bonuses. But if you'd have told me we're going to be top of the league, neck and neck with Manchester City, I'd have said nah, because I thought this year that wouldn't happen. I thought it was a year too early. But yeah, I mean, you go back and look at the Newcastle and the Chelsea game. Although you look at some of the results in the Premier Division. I mean, Chelsea shipped 4 goals on Sunday to Wolves. Newcastle let in 4 again at home to Luton. But the way we played against Newcastle and Chelsea, I actually thought the game against Chelsea was the best we've played since we won the league. That's how I saw that game. It was incredible. We were basically just. I don't know why we didn't score 8. It was just one of those things. It was just brilliant to watch, absolutely brilliant. And of course, we missed the customary penalty.
Yeah.
Do you think
yeah.
that game against Chelsea took it out of the players?
I'm sorry?
Do you think I'm too harsh on Trent? When Trent is playing as an out-and-out right back in red, every opposing team targets his position. You just know they've been directed by their coach, play it to the Liverpool right-hand side. And I'm sorry, I wish he was the best defender at right back in the world, but he isn't. So how do we best use Trent? Should he be redeployed into midfield? Because I tell you what, Bradley looks a damn good prospect.
At right back.
At right back, Bradley.
Yeah.
I think the time's come to push Trent into midfield. I think more than anything, it's where he wants to play as well. It's where he clearly enjoys his football. I don't think he gets the same buzz out of being a right back anymore. And he's by far and away Liverpool's best passer of the ball, by far and away their most creative force. So why would you not want to do that? And I thought that Klopp's done it a few times, hasn't he? Mainly within games this season, where he's made subs, maybe brought on Gomez at right back and pushed Trent into midfield, but he hasn't really done it from the start of a game. But it's felt as if we're kind of edging in that direction, and I think you're right. Like now Connor Bradley has just absolutely amazed everyone with just how complete he looks at such a young age. For me, it's a no-brainer that we're waiting at the moment to see when Connor Bradley will be back on duty, because he's obviously dealing with the heartbreaker losing his father last weekend. But once he's back around, I'd like to see that, because I think it just makes sense in terms of maximising the talent you've got.
And let's talk about Klopp briefly, because it was a big announcement that we got recently from Klopp. I mean, they don't get much bigger. And I know, James, you've been at many Jurgen Klopp press conferences, but Alan, you've not had the chance to actually talk to Jurgen Klopp, and you have a little difficulty understanding Jurgen sometimes. Maybe you could talk to James about that.
It's strange. Maybe it was a great cop-out for me, being a commentator, in that I so rarely went to post-match press conferences. Get into the car, get home. That was my attitude. My work was done during the game. But you know something? I've never, ever spoken directly to Jurgen. So I'm paying attention to what he says in press conferences or what's quoted from press conferences. But I find as I watch LFC TV, for example, and his regular performances, I can hardly make him out. Now, I know this is coming from someone who failed miserably at French at O level. I mean, I scraped the lowest pass mark. So I can't criticize anybody sensibly for not speaking, quote, a foreign language. But we have to accept it's really difficult for these guys. You know, whether it's Jurgen or whether it was Jose Mourinho or whoever, it's difficult. You're dealing with a language that is not your own. And watching the press conferences saying at 1:30 on a Friday, I can't make them out. And I switch off. I wait until the quotes are on the Liverpool website or on some other outlet. So I don't envy you guys at all, James, at having to talk directly to him. And he's probably thinking, with due respect to your accent, I can't make out this guy, James Pearce. What's he saying?
Yeah.
I speak with a certain accent as well. Difficult.
James, do you have problems understanding him when he's talking you through stuff?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, I must admit, I think I've been in that many Klopp press conferences over the last 8.5 years that you kind of, I know what Alan means in terms of sometimes you kind of, especially when you're listening to it back with your headphones on afterwards and you're typing it up and you think, well, that doesn't actually make any sense. Yeah.
You do actually think that?
Yeah, but then I think because I've probably been in, I mean, God knows how many press conferences that probably, 50 odd games plus a season, pre-match, post-match. We could be looking at 800 Jurgen Klopp press conferences I've been at plus. I find myself a lot of times thinking, I know what he meant, what he means. I know, because obviously you can never quote a manager absolutely verbatim because it would just read absolutely nonsensical, because especially when it's not your first language, you find that sometimes managers start sentences, trail off, don't finish them, start another one. But so I do find myself thinking, I kind of know what he means there, and this is how it should read, and the rest of it. But and sometimes I think sometimes if it's a question he doesn't particularly want to answer, then obviously you find sometimes that it can almost suit a manager not to particularly make a massive amount of sense with their answer. So but no, I think by and large, I one of his greatest strengths over the course of his tenure as Liverpool manager has been communication, and it always amazes me that for a guy who English is his second language, that he does have this knack of finding the right words at the right times. And you certainly, not just in his dealings with the media, I think he's been very clever over the years using the media to get messages across. But also when you speak to the players internally in terms of when it comes to motivation and man management and getting the best out of people, he does just he's almost kind of been Liverpool's sports psychologist for the last 8.5 years as well, in terms of just being able to tap into people and knowing exactly what each player needs to kind of get the best out of them.
James,
Did you have any? I'm sorry, Alan. Sorry, go ahead, Alan.
James, do you think there's too much pressure on managers at all the Premier League clubs now, but particularly the highest profile clubs? They're doing how many press conferences a week?
It's crazy.
When I think back to the old Radio 2 days, when I used to go along to see Ferguson, for example, it was once a week. It's not 5 times a week. And I think the guys themselves are probably saying, enough. Don't you think I've got enough to manage these 3 games in 7 days without having to talk to journalists every other day? It's difficult on both sides.
Yeah, 100%. And I know certainly, because in my current job now for the Athletic, there's no real. It's not a new daily newspaper where you're looking for a headline for the back page or anything like that. So there's nothing like the same kind of pressure in terms of getting a news angle or something that maybe there was when I was on the Liverpool Echo. And yeah, there's times when you're at the AXA Training Centre for a press conference, 2-3 times in the space of 7 days or whatever, that you're thinking, what on earth can you ask him today that you haven't asked a dozen times in the last couple of months, especially in a season like this one when Liverpool are going the distance in all competitions. So, and you're definitely right in terms of the commitments on managers now are crazy. Of course, the flip side is they are massively, handsomely rewarded financially. And of course, you can't have it both ways. You can't take the vast sums of cash on offer as a result of the big TV contracts and then complain too much about what you've signed up to. But yeah, even from a Klopp match day at Anfield, where he always does the written press as his last media duty, and he quite often comes into the media room at Anfield with his backpack, and this is his last stop before he heads out and off on his way back to Formby, and I know for a fact that sometimes when he sits down with the written press, that could be his eighth, ninth, 10th post-match interview because especially if it's a big game, because I think I think 5 or 6 kind of global rights holders from different parts of the world, they all are guaranteed their own separate chat with him. Of course, you've got the radios and Sky and BBC Match of the Day and all that on top of it. So yeah, and even we find that with players as well. The mix zone is obviously where us written reporters wait around after games, and sometimes I'll ask a player, any chance of just giving us 2 or 3 minutes, because usually that's all you really would want after a game. 4 or 5 questions just to add a bit of colour to whatever you're writing about with some quotes from a player. But sometimes they'll say, "I've done 6 interviews already," and like, and it's different. It's very difficult to argue with that, because it's like, they've kind of been taken from rights holder to rights holder to rights holder all the way along the line, essentially probably asked the same questions pretty much in every single one of them. So and yeah, I thought it was interesting. Klopp actually mentioned the amount of press conferences that he has to do in his kind of kind of not announcing it, because obviously it was announced earlier on in the day, but the press conference he did on the Friday afternoon after the morning announcement he would step down at the end of the season. He said, I just quite look forward to the day when I don't have to do 9 press conferences a week or whatever. And it is a massive part of their time. And especially I think it starts to grind when things aren't going well, because I've been on the wrong end of a couple of like angry reactions from Jurgen Klopp, especially when things aren't great and you're having to ask questions about things that of course he'd rather not talk about.
Yeah.
Let me tell you a little story, because it wasn't always easy in my day. I think my relationship with a certain Alex Ferguson is pretty well documented, in that we hit at each other's guts. I had to do a commentary at Old Trafford on the Saturday, and on the Friday I went to the Cliff to sit in Fergie's Friday press conference pre-game, and he made some announcement about his team for the following day. And it was basically that Steve Bruce was definitely going to play, but Mark Hughes wouldn't play. So I'm going to commentate, so I took a note of it. But I saw Mark Hughes not long after I'd been in with Fergie. And I said, "Oh, yeah, Sparky," because I knew him reasonably well. "I'm sorry to hear you're not playing tomorrow." He said, "I'm playing." I said, "Oh, you're playing? Right, okay." So an hour before kickoff, I was to give the team news at Old Trafford. And I said, "Well, I don't listen to any of the propaganda that comes out of the mouth of the Manchester United manager. I'm happy to recognise the players when they come out to warm up." So somebody told Fergie this. And the following Saturday, they were at Southampton. And he tackled me outside the dressing rooms. And he said, "You don't pick my effing team." And I said, well, don't tell me effing lies. And that was the last time we ever spoke to one another. I'm not joking. The last time we ever exchanged words. It was great not having to talk to him again.
But it was also the last time he talked to anyone from the BBC for a while, though, wasn't it? That went on for quite a few years.
I've quite a few things to say to people at the BBC, but anyway, that's another career.
So, James, did you get the feeling that Klopp was getting more and more ready to throw the towel in before it actually happened? Because I thought, like last season's press conferences, looking from the outside, he didn't seem to have the same kind of... It didn't seem to be giving him the same kind of buzz as it had in maybe the season before. Now he seems fine. And obviously, once he'd made his decision and the weight is off his shoulders, looking back, it looks like that to me, but I could be reading way too much into it. Did you get the feeling being in so many of those press conferences?
No, I'm in the same camp as you. I'd be lying if I said that that I saw it coming. I didn't. You know, I think you're right. It was, if it had happened a year earlier, it would have been a lot more understandable, because I think you could see the strain on him. You know, a year ago during that miserable time from, you know, I think around now, wasn't it? A year ago was Wolves away, with, you know, that 3-0 defeat that could have been even worse, and you kind of thought, I think Liverpool had a full week to prepare for that game as well, and that was when the kind of alarm bells were really ringing. And you know, it took, and I think that period definitely took a real toll on him, because you know, the wheels had come off. It was the biggest kind of crisis he's been faced with, because although obviously, you know, that you had the 2021 season where there was a difficult period, but that was a lot more easy to kind of understand, because you had the centre back injury crisis where he didn't have any defenders left standing. You know, that wasn't the case last season. So no, it was a huge shock to me, like it was to most of his staff, and certainly to the players as well, and of course the fan base, because no, he's looked like he had his mojo back to me this season. You know, having going to those press conferences. Yeah, of course, sometimes he can be prickly, and you know, I think back in September, October time, he snapped at me a little bit because I'd asked him about the 12:30 kickoff slots. That, of course, he hates the fact that Liverpool kept getting given that, but you know, nothing on any level to make you come away thinking, oh, you know, I'm not sure whether he'll be around much longer, because it almost felt like, why would you not stick around? Because you've rebuilt this team. You know, there's this abundance of very, very gifted young players coming through. You know, everything's in place to kind of like reap the rewards of the hard graft you've put in for another few years. And I didn't ever think he'd go on beyond his current deal. You know, of course, that ran till 2026. You know, I think I always got the feeling that was definitely, you know, it in terms of the current contract. But no, I didn't think Liverpool be having to replace him in 2024. But you know, having listened to him and spoken to people about it since, you know, although on the one hand you think, why leave now when things are looking so good? But I think that is actually really important to him. The fact that he didn't want the day to come where, you know, Liverpool, he was handing over the reins with, you know, a big rebuilding job to be done and lots of negativity. He wanted to, you know, Liverpool to be well set to try and kick on after he's gone. And of course, that's easier said than done, because we're talking about one of the most transformative figures in the club's history. But yeah, I think he feels. Well, I know he actually joked about it to the players when he, at the team meeting before they went out to train, when he told the players that he was going to be stepping down at the end of the season. He said to them, "Well, it's actually your fault, because," he said, "you've become so good so soon. I can, you know, it means I can hand it over to someone else. I didn't think it would happen." And of course, you know, he was only messing around, but yeah, I think, you know, Klopp said it was, he was in a meeting discussing pre-season plans back in, I think it was early November, and obviously pre-season plans for like this coming July, where, you know, they'll be going to America and playing a number of games over there, and he said that was the moment when he thought, yeah, I'm just not sure I've got it in me to go again. You know, do I really want to be planning out next July? And another kind of 4 or 5 weeks probably away from home, getting ready to go again. And I think that then led to the phone call he made to Mike Gordon, the FSG president, later on in November.
Looking at life without Jurgen, I honestly can't imagine it, because we've all got used to this charismatic man. He larger than life. He transcends football in the eyes of the fans, and he created something around the ground. Even last year, there was nobody shouting for him to go or anything like that. You can imagine what it would have been like at some other club, and I can use Manchester United or something like that, if they'd have had that sort of season. But it just is captivated not just the football club but the whole city, and I just feel that next year is going to be strange. No matter who gets the job, and I don't do speculation. The club will deal with that when the time comes, if they haven't already got something in the pipeline. But it's just going to be totally different going to Anfield and not having Jurgen Klopp bouncing around that. Whatever they call it now, the coaching area. It's just going to be strange. It could be anybody you like, but it just won't be the same. I can go back to when Bill Shankly left, but there was Bob Paisley ready to step in. We had Joe Fagan, then Kenny, and it was all sort of like carrying on. It's absolutely no different. But one thing for sure, next season will be different, because there'll be no Jurgen. There'll be none of Jurgen's men there. It's going to be so different. And it's like whoever comes in has got to start again, not with a team. The player, if the players all remain, that's again something that's out of anybody's hands. But they've got some brilliant young lads. I took the opportunity of watching the under-18s against Fulham, and they've got some young talent in that side. They've got the young lad from Derry, Trent Cohen-Doherty. He's so quick, it's unreal. They've got Kumas, they've got Jay Dans, and others. The young lad from Leicester, Naomi, I think it is. And these are all talents for tomorrow. And this is all down to the current setup. And I just hope that the people who run the academy can carry on with doing what they're doing, because all these players, you look at Conor Bradley. Conor Bradley can go in and play fullback. Trent can go and play in midfield. And immediately Liverpool have saved themselves possibly 30, 40 million pound. Jarrell Kwanzaa, the same. He can go and play centre-half. Liverpool have saved themselves 30 or 40 million pound. And we just need somebody who can score all the goals, and that'd be even more. So, yeah, the future at this moment looks very, very bright. But whoever comes in has got a hell of a task to replace Jurgen Klopp. It is in a way like Moyes had to replace Ferguson, and he was nowhere near good enough. So we've got to get the right man in, and whoever comes in has got to win the fans over, make sure the fans know who he is. But I can go back when Bob Paisley took over from Shankly. The first season, there was a lot of people saying he's not good enough. He didn't do too bad in the end.
Yeah, 3 European Cups and however many league titles was it?
Yeah. We didn't win silverware. Then it was a disappointing season.
Yeah. So
I was in this very seat when on a Friday morning, reading a paper, and my wife came in holding out her telephone, and she said, "You're not going to believe this." And I took it from her, and I didn't believe it. But very quickly, multimedia, Jurgen's going. And I sat in some disbelief for a while. But, it had to come. It was like Shanks going. It had to come at some stage. and there will be a successor. Now, we'd all hope that it would be of the magnitude of Bob Paisley. I don't know. I immediately thought of Xabi Alonso because of the great work that he's doing in Germany in the Bundesliga, and I got the sense when he was at Anfield that he bought not just his team, the team that he played in, but the club, the ethos of the club, and as important, the city. There's so many things that he relates to Jurgen with. I would love to see him get an opportunity, but I don't know. I'm just speculating. But that's the trouble with the timing. Whatever the timing was, it would immediately spark speculation. It's difficult. The club will have to live with it for the next 4 months, and the team, if it can manage to pull off the Premier League title, which is the one I want, never mind a Carabao Cup or the FA Cup or anything, give me the league title. Beat Manchester City on what is it, the 11th of March, 10th of March? That will be a massive step forward. And if they send Jurgen to Mallorca or wherever he's going, for his holiday place with the league title on board at Anfield, that would be fantastic. Give him the send-off he deserves.
Are we all confident that this is a season where Liverpool could win it? With Endo back now, Salah coming back, there are positive things, and all the young players coming through at just the right time, coming good at the... Are we all confident that it is on, or is there some doubt there? John, you're always a little bit of a doubter on this.
Well, it's just that we seem to get going, and then we get an injury. I thought the midfield against Chelsea was perfect. Then you have to take one of them out. We don't know how long he's going to be out, so we've got to replace it. Okay, Endo can come in and play a different game to Sabosla, as I call him. It's just that we get these injuries at critical times. Well, all injuries are at critical times. But, we've got Mo coming back. We've got Endo coming back. We've got Trent. We've got Robbo. But during this period without them, we didn't unearth Joe Gomez. He's always been there. In fact, I think he's the longest serving player at the club. And he's been absolutely brilliant. Conor Bradley against Chelsea, I was really upset when they took him off. Not for any reason other than I was so enjoying watching him play, and he was doing things with a football that he shouldn't have been doing. He just come in and stepped into this cauldron. And when you play Chelsea on a wet Wednesday night, it is a cauldron, and he looked so at home. The crowd obviously helped him. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So. Yeah, my doubts are always that Manchester City can go on a 15-match winning run, and it doesn't seem to bother them. They can do that. We've got to try and match that, and that's where we're under pressure. But I just hope that come May. I didn't know he's going to Mallorca, Alan. I didn't know he's let you know that. But
he's built a big house out there, though, hasn't he?
Yeah. Oh, right. Does he rent it out? It's going to be a fantastic running. But let's say this: whatever happens, this man will go and never ever be forgotten.
Right.
James, can we do it this year?
Yeah, we certainly can. Yeah, I think it's difficult to make any bold predictions at this stage, just because we are still so far out. Liverpool have got 15 games to go. I think 4 before Man City come to Anfield on March the 10th, and that's the big one for me, because I think that that always has looked big, but it could just be absolutely seismic in terms of the implications for the title race. And yes, City look ominous at the moment. I sat and watched them against Brentford, and I know you can say it was only Brentford, but it was crazy, the level of dominance. And you think with Haaland back and De Bruyne back, they are a machine, as John said. They have that ability to just knock out 14, 15 straight wins. We've seen it from them before when the stakes are high during run-ins. But Liverpool have also displayed remarkable consistency this season, and there's I think City's record at Anfield is appalling as well. I think the Guardiola's never won at Anfield in front of supporters. I think he's in front of fans. I think it's 2 draws and 5 defeats for Guardiola. The only win he's had was during the pandemic behind closed doors. So yeah, I mean, Anfield's going to be just an incredible place to be when City come to town on March the 10th. It's just a case of ensuring that Liverpool have to be perfect between now and then. And then, of course, if they can beat City, they'll then be masters of their own destiny during what is it, the final 10 games to go then. So yeah, as John said, there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic in terms of at a time when other squads might be feeling the strain a little bit. You've got Salah should be fresh and hungry. Same with Trent and Robertson after the timeout they've had. Of course, looks like we're gonna have to cope without Szoboszlai for a period, but yeah, I'm still pretty bullish. There was nothing off the back of the defeat at Arsenal has kind of dented my optimism in terms of the title race, because we knew it was going to be tough anyway before going to Arsenal. I think Arsenal have still got to play Man City as well. That's another big game that could have implications in terms of the title race. So yeah, it's just going to be intriguing.
Okay. Well, James Pearce, thanks for coming on. It's been great to talk to you on Red All Over over YouTube. Alan Green, thanks as ever. Always good to get your thoughts on things and to find out more about the Fergie incident. John Pearman, the current issue is out now. You get it at redallovertheland.com. Issue 300 in time for the Luton game, did you say?
In time for the Luton game, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, looking for just hoping for some dry weather because it's difficult to sell it when it's wet. There's not much shelter around Anfield these days.
Okay, so that's Red All Over the Land. And until next time, thank you very much. Thanks for tuning in to Red All Over YouTube. Please spread the word.